moment to close our eyes and take 6 slow, deep, relaxing breaths. In each breath, we let go of all the tension in the body and the mind. And as you continue to take your 6 breaths, continuing your relaxation, we picture ourselves on the top of a beautiful mountain in the center of a circular grove of trees. And inside the center of this circle is a bonfire. And we notice that this bonfire blazes forth, lighting us and the grove up with a sacred golden light. And this light is the light of perfect love, perfect trust, and it burns away everything that is unlike itself, leaving us very happy and healthy. And into this sacred space now we invite the presence of our Father and Mother, Lord and Lady, God and Goddess, however they present themselves to us, and all the angels, spirit teachers, avatars, however we conceive those beings that are exalted, and we ask that they guide our thoughts and our feelings, that we can grow to be better, happier, more peaceful, and more loving men and women. Thank you very much. Together we all say, blessed be.
Blessed be.
So it was funny, I was thinking about, I was probably 21 or something like that, if that. And I was already teaching, beginning Wicca classes and gathering up my group so that I could become the leader of the universe in my mind, as we do, back before I knew better. So I was doing a lot of outreach, and a lot of teaching, a lot of trying to make a name for myself, put it out there. And I'm sure that I think everything has its purpose. I mean, I look back and I cringe now with a lot of the stuff that I did, but I'm sure without that attitude, we wouldn't have what we have today, because I wouldn't have been out there building it. So the universe used my ego for good purposes in the end. But anyway, my point is that I had this friend, very, very good friend of mine, who had no involvement in the craft, but was very very friendly to the concept, and just thought it was all great, but had no interest in it. And I remember one day I was bitching and moaning about something, probably money. I was probably broke and I couldn't afford something, and I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I could just see her face. I could see the disappointment in her face. And she said, I thought you were a witch. And I said, I am. And she said, well, then why are you worried about stuff like that? Why don't you just fix it? And I remember being so embarrassed and so deflated, thinking that I had a lot of theory. I knew I knew all the stuff to teach. I had all of the basics down, and I could teach a good class, but I couldn't make it work, obviously, because that's probably the beginning of when because to be honest, a lot of the people that were teaching me couldn't seem to make it work either. And so I think, to be fair to myself, I was also being taught by people that could talk a good line as well, but were always bitching about things like money or whatever. And not that you shouldn't ever have problems. I mean, but I'm just saying that I think that was when my whole philosophy started to get born. The germ of it started to get planted. The seed of it started to get planted. That if it doesn't produce results, it's not for me. Magic for me is anything that works, and anything that doesn't work, I can put it on the back burner, maybe come back to it later because maybe I didn't understand it or whatever. But I only want to focus on what produces real results in my life. It had been plaguing me for weeks, whatever it was, but I do remember that the decision that I made about that, am I going to be at the effect of the problem, or am I going to be in the solution? It was sort of like, do you know when you're driving, the driver's wheel is here for a reason, so that you can be slightly above the wheel, and you can see, you're looking down on the road, and you're looking down, you're in a position of power. But where I was before that is as if the driver's wheel, the steering wheel was slightly above my head, and I couldn't get behind the wheel. I was always reaching for something. I was always feeling like something was out of my control. And all I needed was to raise my seat, was to just change the perspective and say, wait a minute. There's really nobody else. There's no benign power out in the universe that's really caring whether I fix this problem or not. It's really going to have to come from me. It's not just going to happen. And that may or may not be true, but it was a very powerful thing to think about. That I felt that feeling of being very alone in the universe at that moment was actually a very liberating experience for me, because, well, since I'm alone, I may as well fix it. And see, from the Hermetic perspective, you are the center of the universe. You are the center of the universe, and everything revolves around you. Now, that can sound very egotistical, but not when you realize that everybody's the center of the universe, but from your perspective, there is nobody else. There is nothing else but you, because everything has to be filtered through your mind, your consciousness, your senses, your perceptions. So in reality, you are God in your own universe. In that that there is, that it all has to get filtered through you. And so while you are in the time-space continuum that has this particular consciousness that you are going to have to be the one to make those choices. And it is that term choice that is the bottom line there. Existential choice is something that people always know that they have, but they don't know that they know that they have that choice to make a choice. Even down to choosing how you perceive a situation. Even if you don't believe that you have power over circumstances, which ultimately you will change your mind if you practice this stuff long enough. But even if you don't believe that you have power over circumstances, you have to understand that you have power over your reactions to circumstances, because there's no way that you can experiment with it and not be successful. Your body has to obey you when you tell it to relax. It has to. It may take some practice, but it has to. It's not that somebody may be born with musical talent, but that doesn't mean that they can play the instrument. They still have to practice. So they're the ones that have to make the choice. Even if, like, their parents force them to practice every day, they're the ones that have to choose to do it, to be mindful about it, to care about it, So when we are in a moment of panic, or when we're in a moment of desperation, or when we're feeling overwhelmed by our lives, we have the opportunity to view it as a decision that is yet to be made, if we want to entertain that possibility, because the only reason why we're feeling overwhelmed by a situation is because we're in a state of indecision about it. Because if you've decided on your outcome, then there's nothing to worry about. Then if you've decided to have an outcome about something and you're no longer in a state of indecision about it, then your desires are then magnetized toward that decision, and since your desires are magnetized toward that decision, then your behavior is then magnetized towards that decision, and you are going to be compelled to take action to support your decision that you've made. Now, until we are willing to make a decision on that situation, we are in a state of indecision, and that is a chaotic place to be. So, what I'd like for us to do is take a moment and just make a small list, if we could, either mentally or physically, of a few items that are troubling us, something that we're worried that might happen, or we're worried about, situations in our lives, things that we're worried about, things that we are maybe fearful of, things that situations in our life that we are feeling overwhelmed by, something like that. So if you could just take a moment and maybe jot down 1 to 5 things, and see, once the floodgate starts to open up, you'll probably want to jot down more than 5. But 5 is good for the exercise that I want to work on tonight. And it can be anything. It can be anything that's, that you don't feel peaceful about. That, but the more the more gnashing of teeth, the better. Okay, so I'm sure you've got at least one teeth gnasher there, or somewhat. And it doesn't have to be anything major. I mean, it can just be like, I haven't cleaned my house or whatever. But if it's bugging you, that's a good thing. So what we can do is we can say, well, now look, there is a part of me that is creating this discomfort within myself in order to bring to the surface that this needs to be addressed. So therefore, the first thing I want to do is just be very grateful to myself and to the situation that it's being addressed, that I have the wisdom to have disharmony in my body about this thing, because that disharmony is a very, very good thing, because it's proving to me that my intuition is working and that there's something that needs my attention. So yay me, yay universe, yay everything. Now, let's see what this thing is. First of all, where am I feeling the disharmony in my body? Where in my body do I feel the disharmony? Okay, so if you feel it maybe in your navel or your heart or your throat, those are common places, but wherever is fine. In your foot, I don't care. Where is the disharmony? All right, now what color is this disharmony? What is the color? And even if you have to just kind of make one up, that's fine. And now if you could just take a moment and imagine that it had a texture, what would it feel like? Is it gooey? Is it burlappy? Is it airy? Is it dense? Is it hot? Is it cold? What does it feel like? How would it feel like if you were able to touch it? And then what shape is it? Is it a nondescript shape? Is it a sphere? Is it a rod? Is it a vessel? Is it a lightning bolt? Is it a mist? And what shape is it? Does it have, what kind of form is it representing itself as? Okay, now allow it to have some sort of voice. Whether it's an intuitive voice or whether it's an audible voice. But if it were able to talk to you, what is it trying to tell you? What does it want you to know? In a very, 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 very plainly, as plain as possible. And it doesn't have to be anything profound, but it can be. Okay, and then now you've got a sense of what the thing is, sort of, right? You've kind of, you're getting clear on it. Now, I want you to have a small moment of dialogue with this thing and ask it, what good thing is it trying to do for me here and now? What is it trying to accomplish? Why is it in your life? What is it trying to accomplish? Okay, now I want you to ask it, I want you to show it in your own mind, or tell it, or visualize for it, however you want to communicate to it, what you would rather have it manifest as, so that it can accomplish a similar or the same goal in a way that's more in keeping with your goals. How could you envision an outcome that does the same thing or better in a way that is more in keeping with your lifestyle and what you want to do? And then finally, once you do that, ask it if it would be willing to partner with you to accomplish this thing in a way that is in keeping with your goals, in the way that you just showed it. Would it be willing to do that for you? And if it says no, make sure you ask it why. Because the only reason it's going to say no is because you didn't get it all. It's because you didn't get the whole picture. So then go through the process again. Because it does want to, because it's you. Okay, it's not your enemy. It's a part of you that wants to help. So the only reason why it's going to say no is because you haven't completed the process. It might still be afraid. It might be trying to say, no, you're not getting what I'm saying. So ask it again until you get the whole picture. But ultimately, it's going to say, sure, I would much rather do it in a way that makes us happy. Okay, so once you get to that point, then I want you to now see how that entity has changed. Now, what does it look like? What is its color? What is its mass? Does it look like a person? What does it feel like? Is it in a different part of your body? Is it a different color? All of those things. How has it changed? Then you're ready to start looking at the thing itself, the situation, because you've actually harnessed the power within you that was creating the problem in the first place, trying to do something what we don't realize is when we have these problems, it's that part of us is fragmenting itself, trying to do something positive. Even the weirdest, most bizarre things have good intentions. It don't seem possible. It's trying to do something. You don't just wake up one morning and try to be a jerk. You don't just wake up one morning and say, I'm going to just do everything and destroy my life. No, the thing that's trying to destroy your life is not trying to destroy your life. It's just, it's running amok. It doesn't know. It's trying to do something positive. It's trying to do something positive. So now that you have found a way to work together with yourself in harmony, now you want to look at that situation and work on the situation itself on the causal plane. And this is magic. This is what magic is. And that is you're taking the thing, the situation, whatever it is, and you're creating the desired outcome as energy. And that's why we use visualization, because you're able to visually manipulate, not manipulate, you are manipulating, but you're molding astral substance, basically, in order to create causally that which you desire as energy, and then that energy, then it's just law. It has to manifest. It has to. So, but if you go to creating it as energy before you get yourself together, then the same part of you that was trying to sabotage you in the first place is going to still try to do something good for you in that same old way, and you're never going to get off that treadmill until you eventually at some point or another come to terms with it. So you can shortcut that and save yourself years and lifetimes by just finding what the motivation was to begin with. And then do your spell. You know what I'm saying? Because what you're doing then is you're taking that existential choice that we were talking about earlier, and you're creating it on a very profound level. You're not just like, well, I'm deciding to be wealthy. It's, well, okay, but it's not only that you're deciding to be wealthy, or I'm deciding to be healthy, or I'm deciding to have whatever. I'm deciding to get my taxes done, or I'm deciding, it's more than just making the decision. It's finding where the decision exists in your psyche and in your energy body, and making sure that part of you that was creating the other result for you knows that decision is being made, so that you're not at odds with yourself. Does that make sense, kind of? Because that's where I think a lot of people mess up in magic, is they go out and they do a spell on something, but they don't realize, well, they're doing a spell to fix something that they created, and they're not addressing the thing that created it in the first place. And not only that, but they're robbing themselves of the huge amount of power that part of them has in that part of their life, because it's the one that's getting the results anyway. Does that make sense? So you want to harness that which is already getting results, not sort of putting it off to the side and trying to circumvent it.
Or obliterate it. It's still your creation, and even if it manifested in a negative way, if you take ownership
right.
of that being my creation.
Well, the problem with trying to obliterate parts of yourself, is that they're like, it's like getting a gremlin wet after dark. It's demonology is what we're talking about. Demonology, in what it really, really is, true demons are parts of yourself that are evoked in order to be transformed. But you can't kill the demon. You can't kill it, because it doesn't. It's just part of you, and it's just a misguided part of you. So the more you try to separate part of yourself and cast it into the outer abyss, basically, which is what a lot of that demonology was supposedly doing. That's why the demonologists that operated in those ways went crazy because they didn't use it in the proper way. And the true demonologists, the successful ones, they didn't raise demons and have them go sick them on people. They raised demons in order to transform themselves. It was it was part of that whole alchemical tradition at that time. But remember, a lot of that demonology came from medieval era, and anything from the medieval era was very dramatic. So, but anyway, so this is a type of demonology, if you want to look at it that way. I don't like that term just because it has a lot of negative charge. But what you're doing is you're trying to. I prefer the term transformation. You're taking any negative situation and you're saying, well, wait a minute. I'm so powerful to create this situation in my life because I'm the center of the universe, and there is nobody in my universe but me. Because even if there is, it still has to go through me for me to perceive it. So I'm the buck stops here. So if I'm so powerful to be getting this result, then rather than trying to cut that out and banish it, how about instead of banishing it, I just say, well, wait a minute, let's make a new choice. Let's use this amazing amount of power that I'm getting. It's like the idea that I must be a very powerful person to be able to mess it up this bad. So celebrate the part of me that's that powerful, and just give it a new program. It's just reprogramming a part of you. But the way to do that. Remember, it takes place in the subconscious realms. So the subconscious realms are very symbolic. They don't understand as much of the language. You can use some language with it, but you also have to use symbols. So that's why if you treat it as a different entity, it happens faster because your subconscious mind understands, because it's more like a dream. Like in a dream, if you have a dream, if you look at the dream as, when you're trying to interpret the dream as everybody and everything, every part of that dream represents you, you'll get there a lot faster than trying to what does this mean? So it's okay, I had a dream about my mom. Okay, but maybe it has to do with your mom. Okay, on some level, okay. But it always has something to do with you. So yeah, there might be something about you that's telling you something about your mom. But right now, what does mom represent as far as what does mom mean? What part of me is mom being represented by? Does that make sense? So the same thing goes with your whole life. Your life is but a dream, right? Because row, your boat told us so. So when you're working magic, if you think in terms of that your life is a type of dream analysis, the negative situation that you're trying to transform has to do with a part of you. So rather than trying to deny it, you make friends with it. You transform it. You bring it up to the light. You thank it. I mean, the thanking that part of you for trying to do something wonderful. Just like, well, what are you trying to do? What a way to speed things up, because it's like, if you start scolding your dog all the time, and then it just cowers and it gets neurotic. But if you just praise your dog and you just kind of distract your dog when it's doing something naughty, and then treat it when it's doing something good, you train it very quickly. And the same thing goes with those parts of ourselves. They're like little pets in a way. They're little parts of ourselves. They're little childlike parts of ourselves that need to be dealt with in those terms. But you start to just be gone with you, banish you. You can really mess yourself up if you're not careful. So I was going to tell you something, and I lost it. It'll come back. So anyway, so when you're doing this transformational work, it's not that you can't do banishings. Absolutely you can. If you're during the waning part of the moon, you can absolutely banish negative parts of your life. Absolutely. But you don't want to banish negative parts of yourself, because you can't. You can only retrain negative parts of it. You can't You can't just like cut out a part of your psyche. That doesn't that doesn't work. But you can ask it, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? How are you trying to help me? Do you know that we're at odds with one another? Do you know that we have a different, because it may be working on a really old program that you know, like from years ago, and it doesn't know that you've gone on. It doesn't know that you have new choices and new decisions that you've made. It doesn't know that you've grown out of that, and it's trying to do something for you. So when a negative situation comes up, that's why it's such a great thing, or even a fear about a negative situation. It doesn't even have to get into the manifestation stage of it, but a fear or a discomfort or a disharmony about something that even might happen in your mind. Those are really good things because it's showing you that there's some part of you that's creating on an unconscious level. And if you just leave it alone, or you try to ignore it, or you deny it, or whatever, it's giving it a lot of leeway to just keep going. And then when the situation happens, yes, you can definitely fix the situation magically by all of these processes like what we're talking about, but it's much quicker if you can do it before the situation manifests, because you're still working with astral substance rather than physical substance. But that's the cool thing about magic anyway, is even if you do something and you get a negative result or a result that you didn't want, you can undo it. You can start over again. It's not that you're stuck with it forever. But so I think that when I was first introduced to this idea of transformation was a long time ago, when somebody, it was in a different context. It was with somebody was talking about reversal spells, like when somebody was trying to hex you, and rather than doing a protection, they said, well, you should reverse it and send it back to them. And this woman said, why would you do that? Why wouldn't you just take all that energy and use it? If they're bothering to send you all that negative energy, why don't you just transform it and get something out of it? And I thought to myself, that's kind of a cool idea, actually.
Steal somebody else's gas.
Yeah, and
they're giving it away.
And I'm thinking to myself, but then as I this again was back in my 20s when I was hanging out with those people that were doing those kinds of spells, but it still stuck with me for many years, and I'm thinking to myself, actually, that is the crux of the whole of the Hermetic tradition, is not that we're trying to create new matter, it's that we're trying to transform matter. We're trying to transform matter, whether it be astral matter, which is emotional matter, or physical matter, or mental matter. It's all substance of some sort. And so, and that's very scientific. You can't create new anything. You can only change its form, right? And so then when you think in terms of that, you can do all kinds of really cool things with this, in terms of like, well, if you were to look at this as a like the thing on your list, well, what element is it? Well, now is it is it earth? Okay, is it wet earth? Is it hot earth? Is it dry earth? Is it dusty earth that can blow away? What kind of earth is it? Is it fire? Okay, is it fire that's being blown? Is it fire that's being contained? Is it red hot fire? Is it blue hot fire? What kind of fire is it? It's air. Is it condensed air? Is it compressed air? Is it just wafting air? Is it cold? Is it cold ice if it's water? Is it boiling hot water? Is it running water? Is it stagnant water? See, the elements don't exist in a vacuum either, because all of those different types of elements have to have some other element involved with it. You can't have an ice cube unless you have a little bit of earth, right? Because it's solid. Because you've taken the water, you've solidified it, right? You can't have hot water unless you've got some fire. You can't have steam unless you've got some air, right? Is it stagnant air? Well, then there's probably some earth. Is it compressed air? It's definitely some earth. Is it a gust of wind? Well, there's some sort of fire in there. So how are the elements reacting with one another? But then it gives you an opportunity to say, well, we could just take this and how could we transform it from one element to another? What would we do? What would we have to add to it or subtract from it? And you can make it into a fun game. And not only that, but that's when you start to think in terms of, well, what do I do when I'm going to do a spell? What do I do? What do I need? What are the ingredients that I need for this spell? Right? And you can get all down and dirty with it if you want to. You can get into all the right herbs to use. But what are you going to do with the herbs? Are you going to do something and make a potion out of it because it's a water spell? Are you going to boil it? Are you going to make it into steam because you got some fire in there? How are you transforming it? How are you going to take it from point A to point B using the tools, the correspondences that we know about on your altar or your working space? What colors are you going to use? What planets does it represent? Are represented? And what planets are friendly to that planet? You know? How, and is it a square? Is it a sextile? Is it a trine that you would need in order for this transformation to take place? So you can do it in any form, magical form that works for you, that you respond well to. You know what I'm saying? Or you can just work with it as energy, like we did more simply in the beginning. But you can do it if you relate to it from a planetary thing, then do planetary magic. If you relate to it from angelically, then use angel magic with it. But you don't you don't call the wrong angel. Call the right angel for it. The angels are very specific about what they do and don't do. You know, what day of the week do you work on this with? What phase of the moon? All that kind of stuff you can do with this. Or you can get real simple and not even worry about any of that and just work with it like we did at the beginning. However it feels right to you, because it's not that you can't just do it simply like we said, but sometimes your deep mind respects you more if you go through the motions of really doing it, quote, properly. Mm-hmm. If you get the right tools, the right herbs, the right everything, and the right phase of the moon, the right day of the week, the right planetary hour, sometimes, actually a lot of times, your deep mind goes, oh, I guess they're serious about this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, subconsciously it triggers more of an energy reaction.
Right, lots. Yeah. And the little demon, the little thought form, whatever you want to call it, the little sub-personality will go, oops, I'll help, because they mean business.
They're all that.
I think they know what they're doing. It's a lot more. It definitely can get you better results sometimes if you take care and do it right. So it's not that you have to always do those things, but if you don't know how to do those things, you should learn how to do those things, because it can make a real difference sometimes, especially for a very important thing in your life.
Well, and also, like, when you think about all the work, I mean, this is obviously candle moss, but if you do all of the work, so you've thought about it, now you've thought about it into a physical form, being your spell ingredients,
exactly.
Now you've manifested it here.
Right.
Then you cast your spell, boom, back out into the mental.
Right.
So, you've incorporated both aspects.
Absolutely.
Of your existence, mental and mortal, when you cast it in a physical spell.
Absolutely.
And that, yeah.
Then when you can get into when you're working on these transformational things, you can get into deities, you can get into angels, you can get into spirits, you can get into all kinds of archetypal personalities, and The issue there is that on one level, they're just symbolic and they're part of you, right? And on another level, just because like you guys are all a part of me, and you're a projection of my mind. But on another level, you are all your own people, and the same thing goes with spirits and deities and angels and all of that. They also have their own personality as well as being just a part of your own subconscious mind. So when you're dealing with working with beings that are above you on the ladder of life, then you are going to be dealing with things called invocation. That's called invoking. But when you're dealing with beings that are on your level or, quote, below, and again, that doesn't mean worse or better, but just evolutionarily, then you're dealing with spirits, demons, for lack of a better word, and subpersonality parts of you, and elementals, and fairies, and all of those people. Those you evoke. And remember, when you're evoking, that's when you are at the most vulnerable for getting into trouble. And the only reason why is because they don't necessarily care about your revolution, whereas somebody above you knows better. They want to pull you up. Yeah. Just like a really evolved being, an evolved person isn't going to see somebody in trouble and not try to help them. You know, but somebody that's unevolved might rob them, right? So understand that when you're dealing with evocation, and there's nothing wrong with evoking. In fact, it's a very powerful thing to do. But you're dealing with you're dealing with a different type of being. Now, another type of evocation is what we were talking about earlier, which is where you're evoking from within. Now, that's a very, very safe form of evocation if you do it the way we talked about, because you're not calling forth something from another plane into a contained space. You are actually calling it forth from yourself in order to work with it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Basically, we've taken a part of ourselves or our lives or ourselves that we are not comfortable with. And we've kind of, well, as the anthropologist would say, the us versus them. We've made them and not us. But when we work with them, we're reintegrating evoking them, but it's ourselves
right.
that we're evoking.
And for the purpose of reintegrating it, we're trying to, there's a part of us that's at odds with ourselves, that is a fragmented part of ourselves, and that's not healthy. And so what we're doing is we are introducing ourselves to that part of ourselves. We are finding out what's going on with that part of ourselves, and then we are working together with that part of ourselves to reintegrate them so that we are one again rather than fragmented, and so that we're working together as a person.
Well, it's just like if we use the life as a dream analogy, everything's great when you're on the stream, but suddenly you hit the rapids.
Right.
And there's either, you can either go topsy-turvy and, you're losing the direction of both oars and they're not working together. But if you can harness the power of the rapids, you can actually get down the stream
real fast. Yeah, and that's a very good point, that a lot of people are so afraid of turmoil in their lives. But like you said, if you understand what turmoil is, it's just rapids. It's just very, very rapid energy. And if you can work like this, those times actually will get you from point A to point Z a lot faster. And that's what we're supposed to be doing, is speeding up our progress. And so a wise person, it's not that we look for these times, but we take full advantage of them. When an unevolved person will see something and they'll go, oh no. Whereas an evolved person will say, this is good. I can use this. I can use this. This is very good.
Well, recognize the power for what it is, and that's a choice. It's a choice to be, oh no, or it's a choice to be like, oh, crud puppies. Okay, what am I going to do? How do I need to change this? How do I need to manipulate my oars different? And yeah, you can be slingshotted. You could go down the chutes, and next thing you know, you're out suddenly in tranquil water again. But you might be a little banged up, and you just have to not be.
Well, the cool thing about having a lot of this transformational work with these parts of yourself is that you have a lot more allies that know how to do things. Because remember, all of these little parts of you have skills, one skill or another, or they wouldn't be causing these issues in your life to begin with. And so that's the whole idea, is you're trying to use that skill to your advantage. The more you do this kind of thing, when you're involved in a situation where it's like where it's all hands on deck, you have power to draw from. Whereas if you didn't know those parts of yourself, you wouldn't even know that you had a crew. And it'd be like all those parts of you would just feel like a lot of fear. It wouldn't be integrated. So that's that old Gurdjieff thing that a lot of people have this big mansion, and it's like your life is a big mansion. You don't realize that you have a staff, and that's because the staff is upstairs and you're locked in the basement. You're locked in the basement, and you didn't even know that there was a castle up there, let alone a staff. So.
The one room.
Yeah, you try to make the best of it. But when you are able to, awaken these different parts of yourself, it's really fascinating because you have a lot of untapped power and wisdom. Because you notice what happens when you work with what you just talked about here. Those parts of yourself become very enlightened very quickly. It's amazing. The cool thing about our way of doing things is even wasted years can become something that was a good thing.
Absolutely.
It's just like there's nothing that can't be transformed into something that was better than it would have been had you not done it. Even mistakes. So-called mistakes.
Without those mistakes, you wouldn't be. I always say, if I describe my past to some people, they'd be like, "Oh my!" But I say, but I'm actually really happy with who I am now,
Absolutely.
And I wouldn't be this person here if I hadn't been that screw up over there.
Right.
I needed
Absolutely.
to go through all of that.
You did.
To be here.
No, and then theoretically, that's true for people that lose their lives, because of a mistake. I mean, theoretically, in another realm, that can be a blessing too. But for us, we want to stop short of those kinds of mistakes, because it's really tough to learn the lessons that we need to learn in one life if we don't have the life to learn them in.
Well, and you don't need to keep rehashing this stinking lesson. It's like, okay, I've been through it this many
Yeah,
times.
then you didn't learn it.
I've done it. Like, okay, let's.
If you learned it, then it won't come up again.
Yeah.
Or it'll come up in a more advanced form. Absolutely. I mean, it's just like you're not going to be playing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star on the piano after you've been studying the piano for 20 years. I mean, it's like you definitely need to go into a new song. Everybody else wants you to go into a new song. Yeah. Well, but that's that whole thing.
And I'm afraid to change.
And people are in love with their problems too. People are in love with them, and they are enamored by them, and they are proud of them, and they wear them on their sleeve as something to be adored. And
their Facebook page is dedicated to them.
Absolutely. So that's just something I thought would be interesting to consider, is that the power of transformation. It's very, very powerful. And it really is, the discipline I've noticed is in not being unconscious to the opportunities as they present themselves to us. Noticing, allowing ourselves to say, wait a minute, instead of going, go, ooh. Instead of shrinking away or trying to avoid the problem, you go after it as it presents itself. You say, yes, this is great. And you start learning that those problems are presenting themselves to you so that you can work this on them. And it becomes really, really
Cathartic.
wonderful. It just becomes very wonderful. I just don't have the same negative point of view of the world that a lot of people I'm around do. You know, there's a lot of people who are just so bemoaning the world and the environment and the political and the this and the that and the other thing. And I'm thinking to myself, you know, but this is all wonderful opportunity for us. This is all really, really good. I don't see it as like everything's going to get destroyed. It's going to be, we would have never been able to get to where we need to go if we didn't have to solve these problems. And I know that we're going to solve them. There's no question in my mind that they're going to get solved, you know, but the problem is that those people that are so needing to be right about the problems, they don't want to give them up. They don't want to see it that way. And so, you know, that's why it's a beautiful thing when you realize that they're just a part of the circumference of your universe. They have no power here. They have no power in your universe. And it's yeah, it is. And a lot of times people get tripped up by that concept of I'm in the center of the universe, because they think, well, logically, how will that matter if everybody else is, you know, going down the wrong path? Well, because there is no everybody else. That's why. You got to stay on top of this. You got to stay on top of it. You got to really commit to the Hermetic philosophy in order for the magic to work. If you just sort of dip your toe into it and then go back into your negative thinking all the time, it's not going to work for you. Being at the effect of all of these people out there that don't really exist in the grand scheme of things, all that exists is your choices, you know? And the really cool thing too is that you start to, just like the negative people start magnetizing toward one another, you start getting drawn together with people that are very powerful, you know? And it takes like 2 or 3 really powerful people to overcome hundreds of negative people, because they have no infrastructure. All they do is sit around and become and moan and be afraid and attack and
give up their power.
Yeah, they do. They get, even and the whole idea of violence and things like that. That's a powerless. Violence is powerlessness, whereas what we do is very powerful, and it really does work. It really, really does work, but we have to commit to it on a daily basis. So anyway, that's all I have. Is that good?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Okay. Woohoo! Okay, let's do a real quick meditation. And on our beautiful mountain, with our bonfire in the center of our circle, the golden light, we are bathing in it, and we are grateful for all aspects of our lives, and we are open and willing to see our lives differently. And each time a situation presents itself, rather than looking at it as positive or negative, we look at it as an opportunity for an even more powerful transformation in our lives. And for this, we are very grateful. Together we say, blessed be.
Blessed be.
La 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 la.